All right, so I think the last discussion that we had kind of given you some kind of idea about the Bootstrap and what it basically does. We are using it for styling our website, and what we have explored so far, that we have a class here called Bootstrap.min.css. I mean, we have a file here called Bootstrap.min.css, and this is the file where we have a lot of different Bootstrap classes, maybe tons and tons of Bootstrap classes, and we can use those classes just like the one we used for our table. This particular class we have used called table striped to change our table formatting and the look and feel of our table to this. And also for this button, we have again used a Bootstrap class, and the class name is button outline success. Okay, this is basically a success button that we have added just right here, and everything we have got it for free once we have attached that particular link called this is the link called Bootstrap.min.css. Basically this is the link which is basically downloading this particular file and make it available whenever my page loads, so that all my buttons, the table, the formatting, everything is getting changed because the CSS is applied over it. And those CSS obviously we are inheriting from the Bootstrap. So maybe one thing that I told you last time, that what is this particular min.css? What is a minified file and what do we want to use it? So I have told you, right? Last time I did copy this, and if I will go to maybe my Google Chrome, and I have shown you that last time whenever I did enter here, this is basically the Bootstrap min.css file. So why their file is looking something just like this? Maybe you'll be feeling that, hey Vilas, so bad coding, isn't it? Why they have not given any space? Why they have not given any line break while coding? This particular code are not readable, because if you see our code, the CSS file that we have created, maybe this one, mystylestate.css, this particular file is looking so good, isn't it? It's looking really formatted, it's well formatted, and it's pretty readable. But their file, why is looking like this? Even I cannot see the class name, I cannot read the particular file. This is pretty unreadable, isn't it? You are basically correct. That's why we call it a minified file or a minification file maybe. So why we need this kind of file? So I have opened a link. I have just Googled what is a minified CSS or what is a minification file. So you can see the first link is from the developers.google.com, and they have documented it for page speed insights. I'll be telling you what is this. So they have this documentation, and what their documentation is saying, they are saying that minification refers to a process of removing unnecessary or redundant data without affecting how the resource is being processed by the browser. Okay. Example, code comments and formatting, removing unused code, using shorter variable and function names, and so on. So how this is going to help you? Because maybe if you remember, maybe most of the time whenever you're creating any of the files, you basically use comments, isn't it? Let's say hash, you can give a comment here or something. I think how to comment in a CSS file. Okay, so I'll say this. I will just write a comment for myself just to remember where I'm using this particular class. Maybe I can use this class. This class is used inside my student list.jsp file. Okay, I can write a comment just like this. All right, so maybe I can write a comment just like this on top of my CSS class just to make my code a little more readable. So the next time whenever I'll be coming back to this particular file, I can see that, oh, this is the particular class called myfonts, and I have used this particular class on student list.jsp page. That's why we have this class just right here. So we basically do this kind of things all of the time, isn't it? So basically we developer forget a lot of things because we have to work with the different files. We do not remember code, so we write comments. So why Google is recommending us to removing the comments, and what is the benefits out of it? If we'll be removing the comments, if I will be making my class name shorter, maybe my function name shorter, what is the benefit we'll be getting? Why they are saying right here that minification refers to a process of removing unnecessary or the redundant data without affecting how the resources is being processed by the browser. So obviously if we remove a comment, or if we shorten a function name or a class name or a variable name, our code will not be affected. Okay, so that's why they are saying that do it in such a way that your website will not be impacted or without affecting how the resources is getting processed by the browser. Okay, so basically, to make you understand this, I'll go back to my Google Chrome, and if I'll go to my Selenium Express website, maybe I can also open the developer tool if I can, and I'll be showing you something. So I have my developer tool opened again, and I'll be entering this particular website. And I have told you last time that whenever I do a enter, obviously this particular link is hitting the server, and from my server all these files are getting downloaded, and you can see there are a lot of style sheet files are getting downloaded. And I also told you that the much files will have, obviously it is going to slow down our website. So we have to make sure that we are making we are making less number of HTTP request calls to our server. Okay, so basically right here I am downloading all these CSS files. Okay, all these style sheet files I do have in my server, and whenever this page is loading, all these files I'm using, all the style sheet file that you are seeing just right here, I'm using all these files whenever basically I am loading this particular website, isn't it? The CSS is getting applied over all these things, and obviously the things are looking good. So basically, if I'll go to the speed test, one of the speed test website, I told you already, maybe pingdom.com. If I'll go to pingdom, and if I look for the speed test, if I'll do a speed test of my website, can I go to the pingdom.com? Maybe pingdom tools. I will go here and I will look for seleniumexpress.com. Maybe if I'll do search for my website right now, it is going to tell me how fast my website loads. And basically I want to show you one thing, because I know I have an issue on my website and I want to let you know about that issue. So if you are going to see, obviously the load time is right now 3.28 seconds, and it is making 50 calls. 50 time it is hitting my server to download the CSS file, the JS file, the PHP files, maybe the Java files, whatever the code is on. It is it is downloading all the resources from the server, and it is making around 50 requests. And you can see the performance of my site according to this tool is 76%, and it's giving me a C grade, and it is loading in 3.28 seconds. And obviously a good website should load under 2 seconds. Okay, and first error it is giving me right here, the first suggestion it is giving me, make fewer HTTP requests. So basically, if you see here, it is saying that decreasing the number of components on a page reduces the number of HTTP requests required to render the particular page. Maybe a complicated sentence for now to understand. Let me make it simplified for you guys. So basically, whenever if I'll go to my website, and whenever I'm hitting this particular seleniumexpress.com URL, you can see that there are so many CSS files are getting downloaded. I have a lot of CSS files here. Okay, so basically I have let's say 10 CSS files. So obviously it is going to hit my server 10 times to download all the CSS files, so that it can apply those CSS over this particular page, and it can make the look and feel of this particular page. It can change the look and feel of this particular page, because we have to apply the CSS. That's why we have to download the file first from the server, then only we can apply. So each time we are sending a request, then we are getting back a CSS file. Again, we are sending a request and we are getting back a CSS file. Like this, we have all the CSS file getting downloaded. So every time we are hitting our server, every time we are actually sending a HTTP request, so that we are getting a response back, and obviously the response is a CSS file in this time, which is basically we're applying over our website. So the minification is basically, let's say I have all this 10 or 20 style sheet file here, what I am applying to this particular website. Okay, now imagine all the 10 style sheets that I have, all the 10 CSS file that I have, if I will club up all the CSS file into one file. Let's say I have 10 classes in one CSS file, another 10 classes in another CSS file, another 10 classes in another CSS file, just like I have 100 CSS classes inside 10 different CSS files. Okay, so without downloading those 10 CSS files or 10 different CSS files, I can club them up. Inside one CSS file, I'll put everything. I'll put all my CSS code. So the benefit I'll be getting here right now, instead of 10 different HTTP requests, instead of 10 times hitting my server, I can just hit my server one time, isn't it? Imagine right now all these files are getting downloaded. You can see status is 200 for all the CSS files that I have. So right now, what if I'll club up all the codes that I have in different CSS file into one CSS file? Okay, so now imagine what will happen. If I'll club up everything, so obviously that is going to work in the same way. The way it is working right now, it is also going to work in the same way. The goal here is to style this particular website so that we can format this code, maybe we can format this layouts, maybe we can format this images, okay? And all these codes we have in different files. So if I'll club up everything, so only one file I have to download, or one time I have to hit my server, and server will give me back that particular CSS file. So obviously my website load time will be improved, isn't it? So that's what we mean by a minification or a minified file, because we have all the codes combined, all the CSS code combines, or same as JS. For JavaScript, imagine you have 10 different JavaScript, combine it to one. Okay, so in that case, the performance of the website, the styling of the website, or the way my website looks, that will not be changed. That will remain constant. But instead of 10 different files, I'll be downloading only one file. So the user will be downloading only one file. I mean the user client, users Google Chrome will be downloading only one file when he will be hitting this particular link. So that's the minified version. Okay, so one more thing, whenever the files are getting loaded, obviously it takes time. See, the files are taking 458 millisecond, 150 millisecond, all these things are taking 0 millisecond because I worked over it, how I can load it faster. And obviously I have implemented cache on this particular website, so it is basically getting loaded pretty soon. But the thing is that whenever you load a particular file, it is going to take some time. It is going to take some time to download it. Okay, so basically the more the file size will be, let's say if I have 2000 lines of code inside a file, that is going to take around 10 seconds to download, for an example. But if I have 200 lines of code, it is going to take 2 seconds to download. If I have only 2 lines of code in a file, it is going to take maybe 1 second to download, right? The less the number of code, the less time it is going to take to download that particular file into the client, so that the client can, or the browser can apply those changes just right here. So if we'll go to our website, or maybe if we'll go to our Eclipse right now, see, this is the style sheet that we have. But what if I will remove all the extra lines of code that I have? I will not make it format. I will just do it just like this. I will just make the file looks like something just like this. I will do like this. I'll remove all the codes. So I know that it will not be readable, but the nice thing about this is right now you can see, I'm removing the number of lines of code. The benefit of making the file just like this is that right now, as I'm removing the number of lines of code, the file size will be less, and obviously it is going to be downloaded faster when a client is going to hit my server, or when a web browser is going to access my website. This particular file will be loaded faster, okay, because obviously the file size will be less if I'll be if I'll be creating a minified version of this particular file. Okay, just like this. Okay, this is what we call a minified version, and maybe I will go to our student and I'll copy all the other code that I have, and maybe I'll do Control-C, I'll come back here, I'll put that code just right here, and maybe I'll delete the other file that I have because I'm putting all the CSS classes, CSS components inside one particular file. But for now, I'll not be doing it. I'm just trying to make you understand that what is a minified CSS version, or what is a minified file. The minified file is basically removing the unnecessary lines, the comments, the function name, we can make it shorter, and we will basically look forward to make the file size small, and also we'll look forward to squeeze this particular file as much as we can so that this could be downloaded to our client, to our Google Chrome or Safari browser, or to any of the browser pretty faster. That should be the goal. Okay, so the formatting here is not the goal. That's why we create minified CSS file, or the minified JS file. Okay, so right now if I will go back to the website that I've showed you, this particular website pingdom.com, what I used for speed test, if you're going to look for the suggestion it was giving me, if you're going to read this particular suggestion right now, it is going to make a lot of sense. Okay, so so previously, as you have seen, it is making 50 requests, so 50 times it is basically hitting my server to download the complete site, and the load time is obviously 3.28 seconds, and it obviously can be improved. And you can see the page size is 1.3 MB, and obviously we can compress it and we can make it below 1 MB so that it could be load faster. And for that, the first suggestion the Pingdom website is giving me is decreasing the number of components of a page reduces the number of HTTP requests required to render the page, resulting the faster page loads. Some ways to reduce the number of components include the combine files, combine multiple scripts to one script, combine multiple CSS file into one style sheet, and use CSS scripts and images map. Right now, I think you can understand what it basically means to say. It means to say that, hey, you are making a lot of server call, so don't do that. So basically, 50 times you are hitting your server, so make it lower server hits so that your page will be loaded much faster, and you can definitely implement it by combining different script and combining different CSS. And that's why right now, if we'll go to the Bootstrap.min.css file, the minified version of that particular file looks like this. That's because they want, whenever we are implementing their URL in our site, if I'll go to our website, if I'll go to student list just right here, whenever we are attaching their link right here in our file Bootstrap.min.css, what they want that their file should be loaded faster. Okay, because obviously this is going to hit a particular server, and from there only we'll be able to load the Bootstrap.min.css file into our website. So they want that file to be loaded faster. So that's why they have created this minified version, and that's why the code is really not readable just right here, because they have removed those extra lines, the extra spaces, the comments, that's why the file is looking just like this. But you can see it's a pretty long file, lot of CSS classes, but they have squeezed that particular file so that it could be loaded faster. So the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this URL. This is my, show student URL. If I'll go back, if I'll do Command V enter, right now you can see these are the files which is getting downloaded whenever I'm hitting my server calls, basically this is the URL I'm hitting. And you can see Bootstrap.min.css is getting loaded. and obviously the 200 success, the status code is, and obviously the request URL is this one. So it is connecting to this particular server and downloading the Bootstrap.min.css file, and you can see it is actually taking 3 milliseconds to download, whereas our file is taking 10 milliseconds to download. The normal file that we have, it is taking 10 milliseconds to download. But if you see right now inside our file, there is nothing inside mystylesheet.css, mystylesheet.css. Okay, inside mystylesheet.css, actually there is nothing, isn't it? If I will go back to mystylesheet.css, this many codes that we have, but still it is taking 10 milliseconds to download it. Can I hit this again? Right now, how much time it is taking? 5 milliseconds. Okay, so this basically varies, but the Bootstrap.min.css right now it is taking 0 millisecond to download because it is loading from the cache. Okay, maybe I'll do what? I will copy this. If I will close it, if I'll open my Google Chrome again, and if I'm going to hit this URL again, obviously that will not be in my browser cache. So if I'll go to developer tools, and if I'm going to do command V, enter, so see right now Bootstrap.min.css, it has taken 1 millisecond to download it. Previously it was downloading it from the browser cache, right? So that's why it was taking 0 millisecond. Let me hit it again. Maybe it is going to show me 0 millisecond right now because it is downloading from the memory cache right now. Okay, so it is caching that particular file, so that's why it is taking 0 millisecond. Once we hit it again, if you are going to keep hitting, it is only taking 0 millisecond. That's because that is cached inside the memory, okay, in the browser memory maybe. So the caching here is into the action. Okay, but anyhow, I hope that you understand what is a minified version of a file. This really makes sense right now. We have to use that. So a minified version of a CSS doesn't really impact your website, because removing extra spaces, removing comments, removing a class name, removing function, removing class name and making the class name shorter, making the function name shorter, making the variable name shorter will not really impact the website. Okay, but it is going to impact your website in terms of the page load, because the page load is going to improve obviously if you'll be using minified files just like Bootstrap.min.css. Okay, so I believe I spoke pretty much about a minified version file around 20 minutes, which was not required, but I feel that right now your brain has an impact whenever somebody is going to tell you about Bootstrap.min.css or a minified version of a file. You can understand what is it actually. Alright, so I feel I have spoke pretty much, which was not needed, but I believe that you got a kind of understanding about minified CSS, what is it, and when we are going to use it, and why a minified version of a CSS is getting used. I hope that you got a clear picture in your mind when somebody is going to talk about minified file. Okay, so I'll see you next time.